Hello guys, once again it's Matt, and today we have another video. Let's thank our members, Overlanding 11B and COTS, thank you for being the full crew members. All the Foxpam members, including Cover Shows, which is the new Foxpam member, thank you. Make sure to subscribe and join our Discord, and let's get into it. So today we're going to talk a little bit about ECM, or electronic countermeasures, okay? It's something that it's well known in many games and many instances in real life as well. It's basically a way to electronically do a countermeasure for your aircraft to defend yourself against missiles, against aircraft, against anything like that. Okay, in the game we kind of have some kind of form of ECCM, which is the electronic countermeasure, which is a way to actually counter some form of countermeasure, electronically. We can see that in many raiders, for example. I don't know if this is correct, but I was talking with a friend and we feel like, for example, the MLA, the MiG-23 against the MLD, for example, the radar on both of these aircraft, they are different, just like they were in real life. And one of the reasons is the ECCM that it's inside the radar. It makes it so that Chef is not that good against it, basically, in the game right now. But yeah, there are some other instances as well, which are some weird ways to call it ECCM. For example, the Magic 2 and R60M and AIM-9L, some of the, like the TY-90, some of these helicopter missiles as well, they have kind of a ECCM, quote unquote, but the correct name would be like IRCCM, but it doesn't matter too much, it's a different thing. Uh, so we are talking about mainly about the radars and ECM, okay? But with some stuff that we have in game, for example, we have the SPS 141 ECM pod, as we seen on the SMT, for example, here in the MiG-21 SMT, in the MiG-21 MF, and in the MiG-21 base SAL, or it has that pod as well. And basically, it's used for flares and chaff just in game. But obviously, in real life, it had the ECM capabilities. Normally, it's very hard to find information about these types of systems and how they work, because they are classified and they are very, very hard to get information about it. But I think if Gaijin would add this, it would make it would make sense to be similar to what we have in DCS. What we have in DCS, all the ECMs, they work in different ways, in the same way, but they have different, basically ranges and basically signal strength. So an aircraft like an F-16 or F-15 or something like that, it will have a better ECM obviously than a MiG-21. So yeah, but we have, for example, the SPS pod in DCS as well. And how it works there is basically in the most basic form of ECM that we can have, which I think would be the best way possible in game, which is basically confuses the radar that it's trying to lock on you, or even detecting you, on what's your range. So it basically creates a lot of other targets and a different you know radio waves, in different frequencies and stuff like that, so that it would make the radar that it's trying to ping you or lock at you think that there is many targets there, like many like million targets there, and with that the radar cannot actually measure which one of these targets is the actual one, and it would make it so that you don't have a range on the target. Okay, so that's kind of how it would work in the radar department. In the missile department, it's depending on the missile, it would be similarly to what we have in the what's it called? I'm going to check it out. But that system on helicopters that basically create a ball of IR emissions around the aircraft, so that it doesn't basically doesn't uh, what's it called, like it doesn't know where the helicopter is, right? So it would create like a very large target, IR target, for the missile to not know where is it. I'm checking it out, the name right now. It's IRCM would be, yeah, optoelectrical electronic station for protection against missiles with infrared seekers in various types. Okay, so basically you would be working similarly to that of the IRCM of the helicopters, you know, but for radar missiles. Obviously, it's creating a new targets around the aircraft, and with that, the missile can go to one of these targets instead of going for the actual target that it's you. Obviously, as well as in DCS, you would have a burn through range. So you would have a range that if you are close enough to the aircraft, you would basically burn through all of that ECM, and you would eventually see the target. But from far away ranges, you would be just a lot of targets in the radar, you know. And that depends on the ECM that the aircraft is having, the radar that the aircraft is trying to lock. So it depends very much on various different things. But yeah, it's just a matter of that. Basically, that's it. How I think it would be implemented, if it would be implemented. Should it be implemented? It's another matter. I think there is different types of ECM. Obviously, we can have many types of ECM. One of the other types is, for example, actively jamming one antenna. You can do this in some more modern aircraft. For example, you can block them to actually see anything, um, and basically they won't see a lot of targets. They won't see anything. So yeah, it depends very much on the radar. Depends very much on the ECM system. There's many aircraft that use it. For example, here in game right now, we could have on the Soviet sides, for example, we could have from the MiG-21 SMT all the way to the MLD, the Su-17M4, for example, MiG-27K, even the Su-25 could carry an ECM pod. So there is many occasions and many aircraft. The US would have a lot of them, the A7s, the A10, the F4, you know, the F14. Maybe in the future we can see in the, you know, the Harrier GR7 and the Mirage 2000. So there's many aircraft that can have that. So basically would make it so that basically the top tier aircraft would be even more strong. So if it should be added, I think it depends on the aircraft, to be honest. In my opinion, I don't think it should at all. Due to one reason, because we don't have proper RWRs right now. We have this common, like a common RWR that everybody uses that doesn't tell you, it just tells you whatever the ping is from, and if somebody is actually locking you, you know, or a missile is locking you. But you don't have in more advanced aircraft like the MLD, the F-14, we don't have the type of aircraft that is actually firing, where the distance to the target, the distance to the missile launched, a missile launch warning system. So basically we don't have any of that, okay? And the more we go into the future, the more we will see advanced missiles, you know. The next step, obviously, it's the AIM-7M and the R-27, and those are basically like the Super 530D that we have in the Mirage, but better in range and in energy. So the more we go into the future, the better the missiles will be, and the better the radars will be. At some point in the future, we will need a complete different RWR, because if not, it will be basically impossible to just avoid missiles from a certain distance. For example, right now, there is some missiles that if they are fired from less than 5 kilometers or even a little bit more, they're basically impossible to evade. One of the examples is the R-24, the AIM-7F, missiles like that. They are the Super 530D, they're very hard to evade sometimes, almost impossible, even if you go cold and try to do everything that you can. And the more we go into the future, the larger this range will be, okay? Even getting into the 15 kilometer range, 20 kilometer range with the Fox 3 missiles of the future. With that, we will have a problem, because then it's just like whoever shoots the missile first, right? And then there is basically an RNG kind of situation, and it's not very player like dependent, you know. One of the things that will make it so that it's a little bit better, it's the addition of realistic RWRs for these more modern aircraft. For example, the MiG-21 right now that I'm showing has a very realistic RWR. Just like the SPO-10, it only has 4 lights that it shows, and it only shows the lock of the target. It doesn't show the launch, just like in real life. But more modern aircraft have more systems, even to some aircraft like the Harrier GR7 or some versions of the MiG-29, for example, in the late 80s, and in the Su-27 in the late 80s as well and early 90s, they had kind of MAL systems, you know, with rear radars and stuff like that, just like helicopters. So we kind of need new additions for RWRs. That's the main thing. If we have that, the possibility of having ECM, or basically the idea of having ECM, it kind of doesn't need to, right? If we have a proper RWRs in the more modern aircraft, I don't think we will need any ECM. Maybe, as I said, in some aircraft, for example, the A7 has a very high BR because of the way that it flies in a ground battle, for example. And with that, we can put the A7 having an ECM to be able to just counter these more missiles, more modern missiles that it will be facing, you know, due to the way that the BRs work and stuff like that. Some other aircraft can receive ECM, for example, the MiG-21 SMT, if it's fighting against more top-tier aircraft. But that would basically be a little bit weird, to be honest, and I don't know, I just don't feel like it would be kind of a weird situation, you know. So these are the conditions that I think it would be more fair, like right now, to have ECM. But maybe even in the far future, when we get maybe, you know, Su-57s or something like that, in the like 5 years from now or something like that, if we get to that, maybe then ECM would be needed, just because the missiles are too good to not have it, you know. That's the thing about missiles and radar and combat in general. A lot of people think that, for example, the F-35, a lot of people talk about the F-35 being an aircraft that it's so advanced that it doesn't need the performance to actually dogfight. Just like in Vietnam era style aircraft in the Americans and in the Soviet Union the engineers used to think, you know, that the systems are so modern that you don't need dogfight capabilities. But the thing is, the more we go into the future with War Thunder and in real life as well, we are going to get more modern missiles and better weaponry, but also we are going to get more better and more advanced defense systems, you know. The RWR, I think we need the RWR, you know, before even we get to the most of these aircraft from the 4th generation. But maybe in the future we will need ECM to actually be competitive against these aircraft. So I don't know. I don't think we need ECM right now. I think we should focus on the RWR department and on other type of systems, you know, like anti-radiation and stuff like that, and anti-ship and missiles and stuff like that. But maybe in the far future we can see ECM. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about ECM, if it should be in the game. And yeah, I see you guys on the next one, and bye.